Hello everybody, welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. We've got your top headlines for you from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. First things first, we're going to start off with the latest for you on the coronavirus. Now that we do have 3 confirmed cases here in Ohio, specifically in Cuyahoga County, right here in Northeast Ohio. Also want to let you know that we will be streaming Governor Mike DeWine's press conference, which is happening at 2 p.m. You can also find that right here. As we work to bring you facts, not fear, which is the hashtag that we're using to put all of our coverage into a consistent space for you, we'll be sharing updates on ways that places like The Ohio State University with its main campus in Columbus are taking precautions in order to keep people safe and stop a more widespread case of the coronavirus here in Ohio. 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod will also be joining us on the live show today. He's going to talk about the Ivy League canceling men's and women's basketball tournaments that were supposed to take place this weekend. Also, we'll bring it back home to talk about the Cleveland Browns and how they continue to make changes to their roster. Plus, big news today, former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator for Vermont Bernie Sanders are in town. They will be holding rallies in Cleveland tonight. We'll tell you all the details you need to know about that. And then our own 3 News' Romney Smith will be joining us. She's going to let us know what a UH infectious diseases doctor had to say when she talked with them today about ways to keep yourself safe if you're going to be going to large group gatherings and things you need to keep in mind that you may not have thought of if you're planning on attending one of these rallies or other large events in the Northeast Ohio area moving forward. And then finally, we'll take a look at our Cleveland St. Patrick's Day Parade and more as we get to the end of the show today. All right. First up, we will bring you the latest about the coronavirus here in Cuyahoga County. As you know, there are 3 confirmed cases, and we currently have 5 persons under investigation related to the coronavirus here in the state of Ohio. So if someone is under investigation for the coronavirus, that means that they have shown symptoms of respiratory illness and within 14 days of those symptoms starting have either traveled to China or been in close contact with the person who is known to have COVID-19 coronavirus. Here's what we know about the people who tested positive for the coronavirus in Cuyahoga County. All 3 patients are in their mid-50s. 2 of them are a married couple who recently went on a cruise on the Nile River, and the 3rd person attended a conference in Washington, D.C. where a person did have the coronavirus. All 3 of those people, as well as 6 close contacts to those patients, have been quarantined at home. None of them are hospitalized at this time. This is a good time to remind people that seniors and people with chronic illnesses like heart disease and diabetes are believed to be the people most at risk. This is according to the Cuyahoga County Board of Health Commissioner Terry Allen. And as we said, we will be streaming a live press conference from Governor Mike DeWine at 2 p.m. for more information. Now, the Ohio Department of Health does update those coronavirus numbers every day at 2 p.m. as well, which can be found at the Ohio Department of Health website, which we do have linked on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. By the way, as we're going through these stories today, if you just text the word NOW to 216-344-3300, you can find links to all of these stories. You can also find our latest coronavirus updates by texting the word FACTS to that same number, FACTS. We are focused on facts, not fear here, and we want to bring you the most up-to-date, most helpful information that we can without instigating fear in people. Now, along the lines of taking precautions and staying safe, there are places that are being proactive in that, and 2 students in Solon along those lines have been quarantined because they have come in contact with one of the 3 people who has tested positive for coronavirus in Cuyahoga County. So what we know about that is those students were exposed last week, and Solon schools sent a letter home to parents advising people of that, so the students will stay home. They are under self-quarantine at this time. So here's some more general advice just to stay healthy that was included in that note. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after you blow your nose or you cough or you sneeze, you use the restroom, or you're eating or preparing food. If you don't have access to soap and water, you can use a hand sanitizer. You want to use at least 60% alcohol base in a hand sanitizer. Every classroom, cafeteria, and common area in all Solon schools has sanitizer dispensers available for that particular case. And just reminding people, stay home when you are sick. Solon schools saying that students should not return to school until they've been fever-free for at least 24 hours without medication. More common sense advice: you want to avoid touching your face, eyes, nose, and mouth, and cover your cough or sneeze with the tissue, then throw that tissue directly into the trash. If tissue is not available, you want to use the bend of your elbow so you're not contaminating your hands, which you might use to touch something else, which could spread any, infection that you may have. Speaking about proactivity, the Ohio State University has taken a very proactive step in hoping to stop the spread of the coronavirus within the state of Ohio. The university, with its main campus in Columbus, has decided that all of its courses will meet online for the time being rather than in person. So that suspension will remain in effect through March 30th, and then they will reevaluate that time as more information becomes available. This includes things like lectures, discussion sections, seminars, and other classroom setting activities. That's according to an email that was sent to students and faculty on Monday. There will be more guidance coming forward about their laboratory and performance-based classes, so we can expect that as well. And in that note, they do emphasize this is proactive in an effort to prevent illness. There are no cases in the city of Columbus at this time, but they do expect more cases in the city of Ohio. So that's according to the Ohio State University. That's what they're anticipating. And they make a mention of the fact that one of the best ways to prevent the spread of viral illness is to minimize the circumstances in which individuals can interact and transmit disease. Translation: if you don't feel good, stay home. If you stay home and you're not feeling good, you can't transmit that to anybody else. Harvard University has actually done the same thing with its classes. And now we bring in 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod. He'll be joining us to talk about the Ivy League sports world. Ben, what's going on with the Ivy League?
Yeah, so it's March. It's college basketball season. It's March Madness coming up in 2 weeks here. But that means this weekend is the conference tournaments where conferences, each conference has an automatic bid to the big dance, to the 68-team tournament, and those bids are given out via the conference tournament. But the Ivy League has decided to forego both its men's and women's conference tournaments, which were scheduled to take place in Cambridge, Massachusetts this weekend over coronavirus concerns. Instead of doing the tournament, in lieu of the tournament, it's giving its bids to the regular season champions. So that's Yale on the men's side and Princeton in the women's side. So yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the coronavirus in general and a lot as it relates to the sports world, just because in sports you have so many big public gatherings.
Right.
And I'd say this is probably the most drastic preemptive measure and precautionary move that any sports organization has taken to this point.
So that was my question for you. Are other college basketball organizations doing the same thing?
So far, this is the only one to happen. And just before I came on, the NCAA actually released a statement, and without mentioning the Ivy League, it was clearly in response to the Ivy League, saying that these conferences operate independent of the NCAA, and that the NCAA has its own advisory panel regarding the matter, and so far this hasn't been recommended to them. But it's kind of one of those things that I think could turn into a domino effect, that if it's happening, in one area, in the Ivy League, it's not a major athletic conference compared to the Big Ten or the SEC or the Pac-12 or Big 12, but it is, one, it's a huge brand name, the Ivy League, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cornell, all those teams. And then 2, just I think once this ball gets rolling, what happens if another conference cancels? What happens if 2 or 3 conferences cancel? Then it starts to really, I think, put pressure on other conferences to follow suit.
Sure. Well, and you made a good point, too, though, that they do have an automatic bid. So they've said it'll be for the men's team, that'll be Yale. For the women's team, that'll be Princeton. So
there's actually some controversy with that, too, at least on the men's side, because Harvard has beaten Yale twice in the regular season, and I'd have to look further in it, but basically, Harvard felt like it had a really good chance to get that bid. In the Ivy League is typically a conference that only gets 1 bid, so this was their chance. They're hosting it in Cambridge. They were really hoping to, use this week to get that bid to the big dance, and there's a lot of money at play too, or at stake with these bids. So just from in sports feels secondary to all of this, but that's been a big talker as far as the ramifications as far as canceling this tournament.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of disappointed people then in Cambridge that were hoping to see Harvard at home in the March Madness tournament. But they're still sending people to the March Madness tournament. They're still sending teams. There's no indication that they're planning on bowing out of that in any way.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, they've given out those automatic bids now to the Yale men's team and the Princeton women's team. So, I think it might be one of those things where they don't want to be the tournament hosting, the risk associated with being the tournament hosting, all those people, all the people coming from, all over the region. So it might be, they might feel differently about just sending, their one team to whatever, they could wind up here in Cleveland. Cleveland's hosting the first round of the NCAA tournament or elsewhere. But I think it's one of those things where they're just trying to minimize the risk and responsibility.
Sure. And this isn't sort of something that hasn't been contemplated in different ways in the